I love craft shows. Shows like the Great British Sewing Bee or the Pottery Throwdown are favourites in our household. And when you look at the skill and dedication that these people bring to their craft, it's inspiring. But it got me thinking, game design is also a craft. Despite it appearing very simple to get started and not requiring specific tools or materials, it requires the same amount of dedication, preparation, and learning of skills in order to succeed. But you don't hear game design talked about as a craft very often, and I think that's a shame. Especially for those starting out in game design, it can be a helpful mental framework to prepare yourself for the journey ahead. In this video, I want to go into what it means to have the mindset of a craftsperson when it comes to game design, and how that might change the way that you approach your own game design journey. Hi, I'm Matthew Dunstan. I'm a full-time game designer based in Australia, and to date I've had over 60 games published and released all around the world in various languages. On this channel I like to talk about all things game design, from my journey in the industry to tips and tricks to help you on your own game design journey. So if we consider game design to be a craft, what implications does that have in the way that we set about becoming game designers and working on our games? In this video I'm going to go over 5 different thoughts that stem from this idea of game design as craft, and ways that might help you change the way you approach your own work as a game designer. And make sure you stick around until the end of the video, where I talk about what is the most important and sometimes not understood aspect of making games as a craft. A craftsperson doesn't expect their first creations to be any good. If you sat down and decided to start to learn how to make pots, for example, throwing them on a wheel, you wouldn't expect your first attempts to make a pot or a cup to be any good. In fact, you'd expect to be really terrible for quite a long time before you might ever make something that you're actually happy with, let alone that you're proud of, or that you would even consider selling to someone else. When we think of crafts and starting a new craft, we implicitly understand that it's going to involve a long period of learning, and during that learning period, you don't have any expectations to make something good. Of course, you hope that you're going to make something good, but you understand that that learning period is not for creating amazing pots or pieces of furniture. It's for learning specifically, and making things as a side product of that learning process. But this is not always the way that we approach game design. Sometimes when you start off in game design and you start making your first games, you expect them to be great right from the get-go. You've played other games you really enjoy, you have a fantastic idea, you can see how you can actually make it out of paper and card and put it on the table, and you don't understand why it isn't as good as the games you play. Why is the idea in your head not living up to your expectations? But in reality, I'd say you shouldn't have those expectations at all. Game design being a craft means that your initial creations, the first games you make, are absolutely going to be terrible, and you shouldn't expect them to be anything but. Certainly in my case, my first prototypes were all terrible. I've actually kept a few of them, kind of for posterity, but the rules are very much lost to time, and I have no desire to revisit them, because I know that they were just a product of that learning phase. They were a necessary part of my journey to becoming a full-time game designer. A really important takeaway for this is to not give in to perfection, especially at the early stage of your game design career. It can be really easy to get completely stuck, especially on the very first game you make, mulling over it, thinking that you have to consider everything before you even get the game to the table. How will this work? What components should I use? I haven't worked out that particular interaction. I need 100 cards all with different effects in order to have an interesting game. All of these things speak to the same pitfall, that of perfectionism. But a craftsman knows that perfection is probably never attainable, but certainly not obtainable in the early stages of that career. And so you should have the same thing as a game designer. Ask yourself, am I holding myself back from actually making games and putting them in front of people because I'm afraid that they're not perfect or they're not good enough? Do I have an expectation to make better games than what I really should be making at the moment for my level of experience? It's perfectly normal and in fact necessary to make terrible things when you start off. That's how you learn. It takes time to develop your skills. A craftsman knows that it takes time to develop their skills and to eventually become proficient and even a master in them. There's a reason that apprenticeships take several years or even longer in order to cover and learn all the skills that are necessary in a given craft or profession. And the same is true of game design. It's a really long journey from that time where you're first thinking about making a game and you have your initial ideas, all the way to the point where you can consider yourself proficient at it, confident in what you're doing, and to be able to repeatably and reliably make games that other people enjoy to play. And that's not even considering whether you would be able to do it full-time or even part-time. And even that first step, finishing a game that you enjoy, that you are proud of, that can even take a really long time, much longer than you might expect. And that's not even worrying about trying to get it signed and have a publisher make it so it can be sold to other people. And that's a whole another journey after that. The takeaway from this is to have the mindset that you're going to be in this for the long haul. It's not about chasing quick wins. You're rarely going to sit down and out of nowhere knock up an amazing award-winning game. You need to go into the process intentionally, knowing that it'll be slow, full of setbacks and mistakes, but that over time you're going to gradually learn the skills you need to become a better game designer. And the things that you make much further along in the journey are going to dwarf whatever you thought you could make at the very start. And consequently, try not to be too disheartened if you feel like you're taking too long in your journey, or if you're making mistakes that you wish you weren't making. Try and remember this point that it takes a long time to develop your skills, and hopefully that will give you the fortitude to keep going in it. As I say in a lot of videos, the one true way to fail as a game designer is to simply stop. As long as you keep at it, keep trying to improve your skills, keep playtesting, you will improve and become better. I know it can be tough if you've had a bad playtest or a game you really had a lot of hope for ends up not working when you put it on the table, but again, all of those are just experiences on the greater journey to hone your craft. You'll need to learn from others. If you're an apprentice or someone starting a craft like pottery, you're not expecting that you're going to be able to do it all by yourself somehow by willing it into existence. You know that there are specific skills and methods and tricks that you're going to have to learn from other people or from other resources, such as videos or books. And the same is true of game design. Make the most of the opportunities and the knowledge that are out there in order to further yourself on your game design journey. Whether it's reading books about game designs, watching videos like this one about game design, or talking to other designers or playtesters or players in your own gaming groups. All those bits of knowledge and information are going to add up into building your own identity as a game designer and crafting your own specific take on how to make games and what's fun and interesting. And also, it's a lot more fun when you work with other people and take on their knowledge. And this is not to say that all advice might be useful for you. Part of improving as a game designer is understanding which pieces of information to use and internalize and which pieces of information to ignore. But at the start, you've got to at least listen to some of this information to know whether it's even useful or not. Speaking of which, if you find these videos useful, I'd love it if you could give the channel a subscribe if you haven't already, and it'll help build a bigger community on this channel where we can all help each other become better at our craft. Don't worry about trying to develop a specific design style at the start of your design career. Part of the thing that you need to develop as a game designer is your own taste, your own sense of what you like to make in a game. But you don't have that at the start. In fact, as I said, it's only something that comes along that development process of becoming a designer. So don't worry about it at the start. Don't worry about being different from everyone else, coming up with a unique game that nobody else has seen before and wowing everyone with your innovative style. That will come with time. It's something very difficult to approach intentionally. On the flip side, something that's really useful at the start is actually copying other people. Look at other games you enjoy and copy them. Take mechanics from them wholesale and see how you can adapt them into your own game designs. Of course, I don't mean to copy someone else's design wholesale and market it as your own. What I mean is look at what other designers are doing in their games and learn from them, and take parts of them that you think that might be able to work in your own designs. You'd be surprised how much your game will develop from that initial idea that's very similar to someone else's, and becomes your own just from your act of playtesting, iterating, and working on it. Often when I'm starting a new game, sometimes something will be missing, and I'll just use something that I've seen in another game or one of my own games to serve as a stopgap so that the game will actually work in its initial playtests. And I never worry about that because I know over time, as I develop that game, it will inevitably become its own thing. That mechanism that I might have appropriated from someone else, it's going to have its own flair or its own way that's used in my game that will make it different from others. And when you think about game design as a craft, one of the key things that you're actually developing as a craftsperson is your own taste. It's your own way of doing something, your own signature style, if you will. And that only comes with time. That only comes with making lots of games and working out what you enjoy doing, what maybe other people enjoy about your games, and what parts of games you want to keep working on that challenge you or excite you. And you're not going to know that at the start. And not only does taste help you discern what you enjoy, it actually will help you a lot more in the design process itself. Because as you develop your own sense of taste, that's like another voice in the back of your head that helps you make decisions as you're iterating on your game. You can look at your game and be presented with two different options of how to do something, and your sense of taste might tell you, well, I'm not going to do option A because I know that I don't enjoy that. Or you might go, well, I definitely want to do option B. That has the features of games I really love to make and that I love to put in front of other people. So the key thing to take away from this is don't worry about the start if you feel like you don't have your own unique take on everything. Don't worry about trying to be different from everyone else. Copy mechanisms from other games if you need to in order to get your games on the table. And over time, as you develop your craft of game design, you'll develop your own style, your own taste. your own specific way of doing things. And lastly, the most important thing that comes out of this idea of thinking about game design as a craft is that the only way you get better at game design is by actually doing. I think it's very obvious when you think of other crafts which are very physical, like woodworking or pottery, that they're all dependent on you actually doing the thing to get better at it. You have to try and make more pots, you have to try and make more pieces of furniture in order to get better at it. You can't sit at your desk and theorize how you're going to throw that pot on the wheel or how you're going to make that joint for that particular piece of furniture and expect that you're going to get better without actually putting that into practice. But I think far too often with game design, especially when you're starting off as a game designer, it can be really tempting to think that there are a whole bunch of other activities you can be doing that are actually making you a better game designer, when in fact they're not really. I talked about earlier this idea of taking knowledge from other people, from other sources like YouTube videos or books or even courses. And while getting this information can really help you in your game design journey, it is no substitute for the core activities which are going to make you a better game designer. And those activities are the actual doing of game design. It's making prototypes, it's playtesting them with other people, and it's iterating those prototypes to make them better. Those for me are the 3 core activities of game design. If you're not doing those, you're not going to become a better designer. And so perhaps paradoxically, I'm very happy that all of you are watching my videos and I hope you get something from them. But for me, the best thing I would hope you would do is to watch my video, close the browser, and then go off and actually work on a prototype or go off and playtest your game with someone else. Because that's going to be the thing that will help you improve your own game design craft. Be aware of falling down the hole of thinking you need to just learn more and that will make you a better game designer. You could be tempted to think that you're going to sign up for a course or that you'll read a book and that'll suddenly give you the insight or the breakthrough to make the perfect game. But it's simply not how it works. You only become a better game designer by actually doing the thing. And that's why it's tough. All these things I've talked about in this video, developing your skills, developing your taste, not expecting your initial creations to be any good. It's all work, it's all part of a long journey in order to become a game designer. So it can be tempting to try and take a shortcut. Maybe there's some hack that can get me out of having to do all this designing and playtesting and leave me with a perfect game. But it doesn't work. You have to do the thing to become a better game designer. You have to make prototypes, you have to playtest them, and you have to iterate on them and improve them to become a better game designer and to make great games. Game design is a craft. Treat it like one. So I hope that's a useful mindset that maybe you can take into your own journey to become a better game designer. And if you're feeling discouraged, just remember this is part of your journey of becoming a better craftsperson, becoming a game designer. It's going to be filled with mistakes and creations that you're not very proud of. That's part of learning, that's necessary. And maybe as an added impetus to go away and work on your games, I'll leave you with this other video where I talk about 10 things I think you could do to improve your own game designs. But until next time, thanks very much for watching and all the best with your game designing. Bye.